We've been talking about what an entrepreneur does and the traits of successful entrepreneurs. So let's look one last time at the characteristics of a successful entrepreneur. So a successful entrepreneur desires independence, has a strong sense of initiative, is motivated by personal and family considerations. They're able to react quickly, they expect results, and they're dedicated to turning that vision into a reality. They're quite persistent. As we've been looking at these characteristics of an entrepreneur, often the first thing that comes to our mind in terms of the entrepreneur is creative. When we look at the entrepreneur, they need to be a combination of creative and have general management skills. So here on this table, you can see the entrepreneur is creative and innovative, just like the inventor. But in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you're also going to need management skills, business know-how. And so in our previous videos, we talked about what those skills are of successful managers. So why does the entrepreneur need to have those general management skills? Well, after the business has been started up, after you've turned that from a vision and idea into making a good or providing a service, then the entrepreneur is the manager, is the leader of the organization. And the decisions that you're making in terms of who should do what and what are the processes and procedures, these are all the same decisions and processes that a manager does, that the leader of the organization does. So after the business is started up, the entrepreneur really is a manager. And so I refer you back to the skills of a manager and our future videos, which are decisions that managers make. So we can see the blend between the entrepreneur and the manager. But as we finish up our discussion specifically to the entrepreneur, let's look at that one last piece of being creative and innovative. So if you are following along with the Pearson Revel Robbins textbook, we are doing those self-assessment surveys to look at our skills as managers and here entrepreneurs. So we're looking at the creative style indicator. What kind of creative style? What type of creative style do you have? And so we can see here from the material is that there are 4 types of creativity. And we'll just lay them out here. I will zoom out for a second. And I'm actually going to pull this over to this side over here so we can make some notes. So there are 4 types of creativity that are identified here. The first is what we typically think of when we think of the entrepreneur. That is, they are the imaginative person. They are the risk taker. So here, the creative because they come up with new ideas. They experiment, come up with new goods and services we haven't thought of before. But maybe that's not you. Maybe you don't come up with new ideas for businesses, but you are still creative. Perhaps you are more of an incubate type of creativity. So more internally focused, not so much of the risk taker. You're looking for sustainable solutions based on data. So maybe you classify yourself more as an accounting finance kind of person. You're a more numbers person. And so you maybe not think of yourself as the creative type. You might be the incubative type. Here we are looking at new perspectives. So are you looking at new ways of thinking about something? New ways of looking at an issue? That requires creativity. Maybe your creativity is the invest type. So you're externally focused, but you still need some control. Here, your focus may be more goal setting. How can we get ahead of the competition? So here, you're creative because you're coming up with new outcomes, new goals or objectives for the organization. So all of these require thinking outside of the box, but there are different types of creativity. Do you come up with new ideas? Do you come up with new ways to look at things? Do you come up with new goals and objectives for the organization? And finally, maybe you are more of the improved type of creativity. You're not a risk taker. you're very much about incremental change. Maybe you are someone who works in more quality management. And so here, you might be focused more on new processes. How can we do things more efficiently, effectively? So maybe you're more operations-based in terms of the job, but you can still be creative. New ways to do things, new processes. So what type of creative are you? Now, strangely, when I did this survey, I am equally balanced between the four. Now, it's quite possible if I take this survey on a different day, I might be feeling more creative in one of these other fields, one of these other areas, depending on what I am working on. So remember, this is your perception of yourself at one particular moment in time. Okay, so imagine, incubate, invest, improve, all different types of creativity, all valuable for the organization. Now, when we look at creativity, we could look at simply how creative do you feel you are? So rather than type, what about level? Am I a creative person? Do I perceive myself as a creative person? And so here, it rated me as normal. Maybe you are higher. Maybe you see yourself as more creative. Or maybe you don't consider yourself very creative and you scored lower on the scale. The last one we want to look at here, make sure it really is the last one here on my list, is problem-solving creativity. So here, this looks at how well you solve problems. And really, it's looking at, do you use the situational appropriate problem-solving method? So when we look at problem solving, there are analytical methods for problem solving. Crunch the numbers, look at the trends. There are more creative methods for problem solving, brainstorming, thinking out of the box. There are different times when we would use the different methods. So this comes back to the discussion we had in terms of structured problems and unstructured problems. So structured problems, right, have a general process to solve them, and we can then find a solution. So the analytical approach is more appropriate for the structured problems. We want more creative problem solving for the unstructured problems where there's not a clear answer. So this particular survey looks at, do you use the appropriate method, analytical or creative, at the right time? And then the last piece it looks for is, do you encourage creativity and innovation in others? So let's take a look. I didn't do well. All right, so when we look at my scores, notice that the analytical problem solving score here for me is low, pushing my total score down. Why is that? Well, I am a statistician and economist by trade, so my approach to everything is analytical. That is, what is the data? What is the information? Can we do surveys and focus groups? Can we collect the necessary information? Can we crunch the numbers to do the analysis? So my approach to every problem is analytical, which in this survey may not be the most appropriate response. And then we have here the creative problem solving. So are you solving problems creatively when they are unstructured? And I did pretty well at that. I do like unstructured problems. It's new and novel. It's like the Rubik's Cube that I just can't solve. So I just keep hacking away at it. The other piece here is the fostering creativity and innovation. So are you encouraging your coworkers to come up with innovative ideas? Are you creating opportunities for your subordinates, people around you, to develop their own creativity? And there it's just average here. All right, so the question is, how did you do? Do you use creative methods when it's warranted? Are you using analytical problem solving when it's warranted? That's what we're looking at here.